Welcome to our September 2024 webinar. My name is Natalie from Orchid Systems, and today we're thrilled to introduce a new web tray to support the Sage 300 web screens for notes and document management link. This is part of the forthcoming release of Information Manager version 2024 and 2025. We will start with a reminder of the features of Notes and Document Management Link, an overview of the functionality available in the web screens in the first release. We will then demonstrate using Notes and Document Management Link on the web screens. Many of you will recognize the examples from the Orchid sample data. We're using the same documents, as you can both use desktop and web screens in the same site and mix and match how to view and add documents and notes depending on your needs. In the second part of the presentation, we will go through the setup required to use Info Manager on the web screens, and we will share some training resources. We are in the final testing stages and expect to release Information Manager PU13 in October. The web tray will be released for version 2024 and version 2025 of Sage 300. As with the EFT web screens, the web tray is only available for customers who have an active subscription license for Notes and/or Document Management Link. Information Manager PU13 includes a new web tray with functionality to support Notes and Document Management Link in the Sage 300 web screens. As part of that includes the ability to view, add and update notes on the Sage 300 web screens, and the tray can also add, view and open documents stored in Network folder when using the Sage 300 web screens. In future releases, we will look at the setup screens being on the web screens, such as the IM options and the Notes configuration screens, running extender scripts in Notes, using Document Management Link with SharePoint, and using Report Runner and optional tables in the Sage 300 web screens. We don't have a planned schedule for this functionality yet, so keep looking at our newsletters and website for future details. Let's start with a reminder overview of Notes and Document Management Link, which facilitate collaboration within Sage 300. Users accessing Sage 300 in a browser will also now benefit from the same intuitive and easy-to-use way to share information related to Sage 300 records and screens. With Notes, you can attach context-sensitive notes to Sage 300 screens with the desktop for many years and now also on the web screens. With Document Management Link, you have easy access to essential documents directly from your Sage 300 screens, now supporting the web browser. The Document Management Link helps you improve customer interactions as your documents are just a click away. You can easily file, locate and retrieve documents without leaving Sage 300. So this supports remote working by overcoming your reliance on physical documents. It helps make the paperless office a reality, and it now supports Sage desktops as well as the web screens. It has a highly flexible configuration. You can control how and where to link documents. It applies to any Sage 300 screen and any third-party modules developed in the SDK. It is context sensitive. You can link up to 2 fields, for example, vendor and item, batch and entry number. And most file types are supported, including emails and attachments. You have various document storage options, so you can build on your existing document scanning and storage regime. In the initial release of support for the web screens, documents have to be filed in a network folder, and you can sync your cloud-based file sharing service such as Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive to a network folder and link your documents that way. You can add new documents by dragging and dropping. You can link emails directly to DML using Microsoft Outlook. And as mentioned before, documents, if you're using SharePoint at the moment, you have to use the Sage desktop only. Notes lets you attach context-sensitive notes to Sage 300 desktop and web screens, and therefore improves collaboration. You can save time, improve customer service as your information is ready at hand. It reduces the reliance on offline content and notes held outside Sage 300. Supports on-the-job training with context-sensitive data entry guidelines. You can add instructions for screens. And supports remote working and multi-site operations. As with Document Management Link, the configuration is highly flexible. You have context-sensitive notes that can apply to any Sage 300 screen and third-party modules developed in the SDK. You can link to up to 2 fields: vendor item, customer and item, batch and entry number. You could control who sees what by configuring role-based rules, which helps with securing the information as well as avoiding having too much clutter of information that you don't need. If you're using the Sage desktop screens, you can use rich text, hyperlinks, and even small images. This is not available on the web screens. Similarly, you can use extended notes by combining notes with Orchid Extender for conditional notes, on-the-fly notes. This functionality is currently only available on the desktop screens. Before we delve into the presentation, you can see here an example of the Sage 300 AP invoice entry web screen with a tray on the left-hand side, some notes for the screen, as well as documents relating to the specific invoice I'm entering, ORC 2807, and then a list of all the documents that have been filed for this particular customer vendor. This is an example of how to use it. The configuration is up to you. Let's now delve into the Sage 300 web screens. I'm going to log into the web screen as Dan, who is set up as a Document Management Link user. We're using Chrome, but we can also use Firefox, Microsoft Edge, or Safari. In our Sage 300 menu toolbar, we have a new icon, which is part of Info Manager for the web screen. This indicates that it's been configured, it's running. It is grey because there are no notes configured for this particular screen. Let's start with looking at the AP invoice entry screen, as it is a very common usage of Document Management Link. I'm going to enter a new invoice for my vendor 1500. As I select the vendor, you can see documents are popping up in the tray, previous invoices saved for gold. I'm going to enter my invoice number. And now I can upload the document. There are different ways to upload the documents, to upload the file. I'm going to use first this one. And this is my invoice for Gould INV 2209. As I'm adding it, it is renamed based on the document number that I have entered. Entering the rest of the details for the invoice. Click Save. I go back to entry number 1. My document is here. I can double click. We'll open the document in the browser, or depending on how this extension is configured in the browser, it may be downloaded and I need to open it from my download files. My batch has been posted. Let's look at it at the transactions in the AP vendor activity. I'm going to select vendor 1500 Gould. I can see the list of documents for this vendor. I have a folder, subfolder there that I'm also displaying in Document Management Link. I can click on that and see the contract. navigate back up to see all my documents. You'll notice that the icon here has been configured to turn red when there are documents or notes for the vendor, rather than the default yellow icon. So again, this is your configuration choice. If I go to the Transactions tab and navigate through various invoices, I can see my individual invoice now is showing here. If I look at vendor 1200 and navigate through the transaction, I have a few more documents that have been attached, including a document, an email message, and a PDF. Navigate through the other transactions and I can open the document as required. Let's now look at an example of using Document Management Link with GL journals. If I look at batch 273 for my depreciations, entry 1, I've attached a file already, which I can double click on it to download it and open it. Review the file. If I had a new entry for the USA entity depreciation, I could upload using the upload icon as we've seen before, but I can also use drag and drop. So let me go to my scan documents. Got my depreciation file, which I can drag the file here into the tray. You can see the drop icon, the drop message is showing in the bottom of the tray. Drag it there and it gets renamed based on the batch and the entry number. I can save this entry and add a new entry. So I want to show you another way to drag and drop, which is using Outlook. So I can attach a whole email, or I could just attach that document from the attachment to the email can be attached there, or I can attach the whole email. So now I've got a message file to open the email in Outlook and the spreadsheet. We've looked at using Document Management Link on the web screen, looked at examples of viewing and adding documents on the AP invoice entry screen, seeing how they are also visible on the AP vendor activity screen. We've looked at attaching spreadsheet, emails, and attachment from emails against GL journals. This is all configurable, and we will go through the configuration a little bit later. You can have more than one box per screen, so that could be multiple types of documents. We've seen how we can show the individual invoice, but also all documents for a particular vendor. You can mix and match with notes as well. You can link documents to up to 2 fields. We've seen in the GL journal example, we're attaching to the batch number and the entry number. And Document Management Link on the web screen and on the desktop screens as well works with all third-party modules developed through the SDK. Let's now log into Sage 300 Web Screens, logged in as Susan, who has access to Notes only. We're using Google Chrome, but we can also use Firefox or Microsoft Edge. Like previously, we have our Information Manager Notes and DML icon that is available, indicating that the service is active. In this example, let's start with GL account notes. Here I've got the tray opening on the right hand side. I can move it to the left of the screen if I choose to. We have some instructions for that screen. So whenever we open the GL account screen, we'll see this note asking to check the transaction optional fields when creating the GL accounts. If I have rights, I can go and update the note, click in the note and update the content. Save. But what I want to look at here is select GL account. If I'm looking at account 1000-1, a note has been entered, a long description indicating when to use this bank account. Again, if I have no rights to update this type of note, I can update the content and save, or I could also delete the note. If I go to another account, I can create a new note and enter my content. And that is for entity 3. If I enter a GL journal, difference in description, choose my GL account, the note is now displayed in the tray. I'll use the GL account that I've just created a note for entity 3. I get my new note. We've looked at a note for GL accounts and how we can see this note when entering a GL transaction. Let's now look at AR customers. If I look at Mr. Ronald Black, my 1200, I can see a note here relating to the credit limit. I can add a new note, set the category. As previously, I can move the tray as I need, or I can use this icon to close or open the tray. Let's now look at an example using IC item. I have my instruction note for the screen that appears whenever I'm on that screen. If I select item A11030, see that I or other users have entered notes. On the web screens, the notes have got to be text only. So if you are using both the web screens and the desktop screens, we suggest you only enter text. The rich text formatting or small pictures that you might enter on the desktop screens are not visible on the web screens, and if you happen to update such a note on the web screen, you will lose this. If I select item A1400, the desk notebook, I don't have a note yet, so I can put in some notes, select my item category, save. We mentioned that Notes and Document Management Link works with Sage 300 web screens developed in the SDK, and for this we're going to use EFT processing example web screens. If I go to EFT vendors and select my vendor, you can see a couple of things happen. I have an icon that is now red, indicating that there are records notes configured for this screen, and I've configured it to display it in red instead of the default yellow. My tray pops up with the note where I last left it, so I can move it back to the left or use the cursor to move it somewhere else. I have my two notes here. Again, if I have security rights, I can delete that note, say yes. I can create a new one, only use for ISO format, save, select another vendor, create a new note, select my vendor category, which determines the background color of the screen, and if I want, I can also add a screen instruction note. So general procedures for using the EFT vendor screen. We've looked at examples of using notes on the web screens, notes on the GL account, which can act as a long description for the GL account, and showing how this note is displayed when you're entering GL journals and select the account. We've looked at AR customer notes, item notes, EFT vendor notes, and screen instruction notes. Notes are role-based, which lets you secure some content if you don't want users to see certain types of notes, and also it avoids clutter and irrelevant notes. You choose on which screens you display the notes. You can connect up to 2 fields, so it could be your customer and item on the order entry screen, or EFT vendor and file type. and it works with all third-party modules developed in the SDK. Now we're going to look at document management link and notes working together. Log into the web screen as a user that can view both notes and document management link. Let's start with our AP vendors. So here I'm seeing all documents for that vendor, and I can add a screen instruction. If I go to vendor activity, like previously, I'm seeing a note for this vendor that we must use their vendor pack sizes. I'm seeing all documents for that vendor. If I go to transactions and navigate through individual documents, I'm viewing individual invoices here. I can still double click to open or download document, and I can also add a screen instruction for the AP vendor activity. We looked at our GL transaction previously. Let's go and look at a GL batch. So I'm looking at this batch 273, which has a line for account number 1621. I'm seeing my GL account long description as I'm selecting the account number. I'm also seeing the file that I've uploaded. Another example where notes and document management link work well together is the order entry screen. I'm looking at an order for customer 1200. I'm seeing here my order related document. And as I'm going through the line items, I'm seeing in addition item documents as well as item notes if they have been entered, and I'm still seeing my order related documents. So we can also then upload an order document, for example, our shipping documentation. It's saved in here. If I'm now to look at this order in the desktop screen, order 001, I will see this document, order related document that was attached on the desktop screen, on the web screen, sorry. The one thing that I'm seeing on the desktop screens that is currently not available on the web screen is those extender scripts that I'm running in the note, so running on the fly. We have demonstrated various examples of using notes and document management link on the Sage 300 web screens, and we have discussed many features of the web tray. But let's review some of these features in more details using the AP vendor activity as an example. Based on your configuration, the tray can open automatically when you go to a particular screen or not. In this case, it is opening automatically. I can use the icon here to close or open the tray. The tray's position is remembered per screen, so in this case it's on the left. I can move it to the right. I can also use the cursor in that cross shape to move it. I can expand the tray. Let's select a vendor. Seeing my instruction notes, my vendor notes. If need be, I can also resize individual notes. On the tray, I can resize the column, the grid column. So if you had long file names, you might want to make the file name a little bit bigger. You're seeing that by default, we're showing the document name and the date last modified. You can change that to show just the name, or just the name and the size, or the name, the size, and the document. So I'm going to remove the size. And I'm going to move it back to the left of the screen. And all this is documented in the help, which you can access from the tray using this little icon on the top right of the tray. This was an overview of using Notes and Document Management Link on the web screens. In the next part of the presentation, we will discuss the key steps to install and configure Information Manager and share some configuration tips and resources. In this new product update of Information Manager, there is an important change to how DML users are configured to support the web screens. This applies to both web screen users and desktop screens, so it will apply to anyone who is using Document Management Link now and installs that update. The licensing model of concurrent users hasn't changed. However, instead of configuring the DML users in the system tray for each user, you now configure the DML users in the Information Manager license screen. That applies to desktop users and the web screen users. We will look at this and share some tips, and this is documented in the help. To enable the functionality, the logged on user needs to be set up as a DML user. And to do this, these are the key steps here. You would log into Sage 300 as admin. You go to the license screen and you can insert a row for all users that need to access, and that means viewing or adding documents. You then restart the Sage desktop and the users can then view the documents. Let's look at this in Sage 300. Log into Sage 300 as administrator. Go to IM Setup License screen. If I go to the license screen, I can see that I have two DML user licenses. Anne is connected via the web and Dan is connected as a desktop user on this server called Sage 300C 2024. If I want to add another user as a DML user, I can insert a row, select my Sage 300 user, and save. As previously, if you have two users and you already have two users connected, if I log in as Steve, I will see a message saying there are no available DML users. To disconnect out of the desktop screens, you need to log out of Sage 300 on the web. If you sign out here, Anne has signed out and is not connected through the web. If you close the browser without signing out, you will be disconnected as a DML user within 10 minutes. So that is a really important point to remember when you install that next update. Next, to get started with Information Manager Web Tray to display notes and document management link. To install, there's a bunch of prerequisites which we've touched on. You need a subscription license, you need to run the latest product update of Sage 300, version 24 or 25, and install Information Manager PU13. This is documented in the help, so we won't show that to you now. But the two main things that we're going to show you is to install and configure the Information Manager Web Tray, and then sharing some tips to configure notes and document options. So again, let's log into Sage 300 as admin. If we go to IM Setup Options, you'll notice a new tab called Web Tray. So there's two components to install or to configure, and if you click here, it will take you to the help that we have just looked at, and it is explained in detail how the tray works and what you need to do. So the tray works by having a Windows service that connects to the Sage 300 web screen. So one thing we need to do And you only do this once per site, not per database. We need to browse to the path where the web config file is, and generally it's in Sage 300 Online Web. Select that and click Install IIS modules. That will update the web config file to support document management link. That is explained here. Second part is to install the Windows service. The first time you do it, you need to select a Windows user, a service account, so enter your password and select a Sage 300 user. We recommend that you create dedicated users. It facilitates security setup and the auditability. That Windows network user to run the service. For document management link, that Windows network user needs read, write and delete rights to the folders where the documents are saved. The dedicated Sage 300 user, it doesn't need any specific security rights, as Notes uses the Sage user that is logged onto the website to the Sage 300 web screens to work out what rights they have access to. This Sage 300 user, DML Web, will require a Sage 300 LAN pack to connect to the database. So we suggest that you reserve a LAN pack for use with the Inform Manager web service to ensure continued access to the functionality. Put my password here and click Install Windows Service. That will create a service in Windows Services called Orchid Inform Manager Web. And the network user that you put in here, so DML service, that will be set as the logon as user. You only do this once, and if you need to change the Windows users, you need to do that directly in Windows Services. If you need to change the Sage user or their password, you would leave this blank and enter a Sage user and a password and click Install Service. Let's now look at the second part of the configuration, which is to configure Notes and Document Management Link for the tray. They're the same principles on the desktop and the web screen, so if you're familiar with setting up Document Management Link, and Notes, it will be easy to set up them for the web screens as well. You can have multiple boxes, either multiple documents, multiple notes, a combination of both per screen, and you can use up to 2 fields on any Sage 300 core modules and SDK screens. Notes and Document Management Link rely on the field labels to display or not the records. On the desktop screens and the web screens, in some cases the field names are different. So if you're using both, you may need 2 configuration rows. We'll look at some examples of that. The vendor number field on the vendor activity, the screens, and the item in the OE list. The other difference is that there is no rotor ID on the web screen. So if you want to restrict some configuration by screen, you need to use the screen name for the web screens. The main tips are here documented in the help. Let's look at a few example configuration in IM Options, Notes, DML Extender Tray. For our AP invoice entry screen, our common scenario, this is what we have configured here for the web screens, AP invoice entry, which matches the rotor ID AP 2100 in the desktop. If we click on details, it's easier to see what's going on. So we've configured it for document management link for the network folder. We only want to show this on the AP invoice entry screen. We're using the vendor number field, and this is the path where the documents are going to be saved. It's in an AP documents folder, and we're creating one folder based on the vendor number. We are going to show alert automatically display the tray. If we're not changing the notification method, so the icon will be yellow. We could set it to red by changing this to change tray icon red. And then we're setting the heading to all vendor documents and adding the vendor number. If I look at the next one, this is our vendor number, document number field. We're renaming the file to the invoice number, so document number, value 2. Now to display this on the vendor activity screen, for the desktop screen, you see the caption here is vendor no full stop. So this is the record, the configuration record that matches the vendor activity screen, but on the web screens, we set it up like this, vendor number. Another example of differences is on the OE order entry screen. To display item notes or documents on the desktop screen, you use item no full stop / misc full stop charge. On the web screen, you use item number / miscellaneous charge. You can't use the tray to give you the field name for the web screen, so you actually have to look at the screen. Once you've added or updated a configuration, you click Save here. For the desktop tray, you refresh here. For the web screens, you go into Windows Services and restart this service. The other example that is different is to do instruction notes. So on the desktop screens, the field label is Roto ID. On the web screens, the field label is screen caption. And a reminder that the notes on the web screens in the web tray are text only. If you have some rich text formatting or some pictures in the notes, you can only do it in the desktop tray. Such content is not displayed on the web screens, and if you are to edit the notes on the web screen, you will lose all this rich text formatting. So if you are using both the desktop and the web screens, recommend that you use text only in the notes. In summary, the new product update for Notes and Document Management Link 2024 will be released in October as PU number 13 and will include support for the web screens. It will also be released for 2022 and 2023 as PU 13 and will include the changes to the DML user setup. You have to set it up in the license screen. To run the web screens, you will need version 2024 and above. You will need a current subscription for Notes and or Document Management Link. You'll be able to add and update notes, have access to a web tray to display and edit notes in the web screens. You'll also be able to use a web tray to display and add documents in Network folder in Sage web screens. In future releases, we will look at the setup screens for the web screen, so the IM options and note setup. Look at the ability to run extended scripts in Notes for conditional notes and informational notes run on the fly. Looking at Document Management Link and SharePoint, and looking at Report Runner and optional tables. There is no schedule for these releases yet. Thank you very much for your time, and for more information you can look at the Orchid website, look at the product news for the release date and the help and the video section for presentation of what we've looked at today.